G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 241 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name's always Adam Camilleri. We're doing a Teams episode because Teams is crazy right now. It's everywhere. As we're speaking right now, we have a 350 plus player Teams event in Spain. We have a 370 player Teams event in the UK. We have a 180 and 160 player team events in Canada and the United States. Last weekend was much the same. Teams are moving and shaking, and we are T-minus checks watch 3 months from the WTC. So a very good time to check in on teams. To that end, I have brought on two of the maestros of team events, hailing from the wonderful, wonderful Not Enough Episodes show named Enter the Matrix. First up, we have Pumbaa, the captain of one of the most successful teams and nations of all time at the WTC. Poland captaining them to a victory 2 years ago. Welcome, mate. How you doing?
Hello, Adam. Thank you for having me.
An absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. And Nathan Roberts, the analyst, the big brain himself. Hello, mate.
That's the best intro I've ever had. That sounds good.
The big brain himself. The Doom of Malantai. There's a model for the boomers. So, boys, we're just going to be chit-chatting about teams. We're going to run through every single faction in the game, and we're going to do our best to tell people at home what we think, between the three of us, our brains trust, is their best detachment they can take in teams. Of course, we will be mostly talking about the highest level of the game and what they offer. What's that detachment? What is that archetype? And what do they offer to a team in a team's lineup, or what you should consider or not consider them? In part two, we're going to be answering some Patreon questions and talking about the WTC, who's going to win, we think, who's doing well, what's moving and shaking out there in teams, and what is doing really well. And then we're going to be the three of us. We're going to be putting together what we think would be the perfect 8-pack of factions for the game in this instant. So hopefully you'll join us over there on Patreon. But boys, Pumbaa, Nathan, whoever wants to, tell us about Enter the Matrix, because I enjoy it quite a lot.
Sure thing. I think I can do that. Enter the Matrix is the show that we are doing. I wish more consistently that we are actually doing it, but life gets in the way. It's a show that is hosted on StatCheck Network with our friends over there, letting us do our show on their platform. We are also joined by Typhus, my good friend from Poland as well, who also was a co-captain of Team Poland for many, many years. And we are mainly discussing teams events, team meta, anything Warhammer teams related, actually. So if you want to catch discussions of what's going on, stay relevant onto the topics of armies and such, join us there. We do recommend.
I'd like to extend my apologies to Typhus. I did want to message him and ask him if he could come on the show as well. I couldn't remember what his freaking name was on Facebook. Not that I don't.
Oh, that's a difficult one because it's very polished.
Freaking is. It really is. I love the guy, and I'm sorry he's not here. But gents, let us kick this bad boy off. We're going to start with. So I do faction breakdowns on my other show, Why Meta Chasers. Go check it out on Thursdays. And I'm going to run through the same list of every faction all the way down. So the last one is Aeldari. The first one, starting off with the best teams faction of all time, Imperial freaking Agents. All right. Is there any debate on which the best detachment is if you are deciding to be the absolute mad lad of your local scene and try and play teams with Imperial Agents? Or is it just Imperial Fleet?
I think it's Imperial Fleet and no questions asked, right?
The only debate is whether you try and take a... see, the thing is, you could legitimately just try and take a second Marine army and just play like bad Deathwatch and just stack it with Deathwatch Marines. But even that's like kind of better in Imperial Fleet anyway.
That's the thing, I think. I think even if you are going that direction, you will find yourself in a place where Imperial Fleet becomes the default still and isn't far off after like the Ordo Xenos or whatever the detachment is.
Nathan, if you were building the core of an Imperial Agents army for teams, and this is a bit tongue-in-cheek because Imperial Agents, what would that list look like?
To be honest, I've only ever seen it at teams once. Germany took it to the Pyro. Me and you went to Pumbaa.
Yep.
I don't even remember which detachment it was.
It was Imperial's Fleet, and
it was just a second sisters list because
basically
immolators and stuff falling out of immolators.
It was just an incredible amount of OC in transports, very like control-y, drawish type of list that tries to use the amount of bodies it can present on the board in transports to play the game to a drawish extent rather than push something off the board.
What's amazing is it feels like an even more damage anemic Adeptus Mechanicus army.
Somehow, yes.
Yeah, somehow.
I think
even less guns.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Sisters of Battle. Pumbaa, what do you reckon is that best detachment?
So, I'm very sorry that Typhus isn't here because he's been loving Sisters for the last, I think, 2 years now. And actually, he's been to a couple of team events recently. And he's been running it's not the Army of Faith, it's the Nathan, please help me out.
Is it Hallowed Martyrs?
It is, of course it is. It's the Hallowed Martyrs detachment. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the general idea of the list would be to present something that relies heavily on the amount of units you have, and especially on the resurrection stratagems that the detachment presents, to just trade supremely well compared to other pieces. I do believe Typhus has found a way to even go into some gun lines. I know he had success numbing Mordaka Orks when they've been in their prime and completely broken. So there's definitely something there. I know the 30 Arcos that he's been bringing back have been proven to be very, very good.
Wow.
Other directions, I think I would include something that Quinton Johnson from Art of War is running at the recent BFS. I think his list is more on the Christmas detachment, I believe. The Christmas detachment.
Yeah, the one with the Sacrosanct.
Exactly. And he's been running a lot of Sacrosancts in that. So I think there's multiple avenues to go with Sisters. I personally like Typhus' version the best, but I also know the most out of it, right? Because of talking to him.
So, question for you, Nathan. Morvenn Vahl and Paragons, is that an auto take in teams, or should it be left on the shelf?
So, kind of a big overarching topic of teams a lot of the times is armies' roles. If the list is designed to grind out points, I think it is a very good unit to include. It fills a gap that maybe the rest of the list doesn't do as well, having some kind of hammer or anvil unit or whatever you want to call it. So, I would take one. But then again, I also think there's a bit of play in Penitent Host. I think that's not a terrible list these days.
Spicy.
But it seems to be the more kind of Sisters before the Codex came out, where they were really good blunting, really good scoring, decent-ish damage output, is kind of what they've gone back to now, which is reasonable.
I generally also think Sisters have been kind of forgotten after their nerfs, as they've been nerfed extremely severely, and people are just completely disremembering how good that army is from the old days. Exactly. I think there's enough to them and enough builds and directions you can take them that they become incredibly valuable, especially when people forget how to play against them.
I think I'm with Nathan that Morvenn Vahl is more auto take than not, and mostly I think that's because an army without Morvenn Vahl, I think you can disrespect a lot easier because Vahl can explode and pick up 3. My mate Reese picked up 5 Chaos Knights in a turn with Morvenn Vahl. Like, shot 2 dead, charged 1 dead, 1 moved, overwatched. They shot, killed a Paragon, shot back, killed another one, killed 5 in a battle round. And you're just like, that's Magnus. That's a game-winning unit. I think that's the kind of stuff just brings so many questions to your opponents. I agree. All right, moving on. This has been an interesting one. Custodes, boys. We'll start with you, Nathan. What do you reckon is the best attachment?
Solar Spearhead.
Solar. Ooh, there's a take. There's a take. Ooh, okay. State your case, mate. Why do you think that's so?
So for me, it's they're more lions. And Lions is very, very good, but I think it needs sometimes more babysitting in pairings, because there are a lot of anti-assault armies in teams these days, and there's a lot of 3 damage in teams these days.
Crazy
which, granted, if you can pick the right tables, Lions is a nightmare for some armies. Like at Home Nations, I'm really sorry, I've forgotten his name. He won Worlds.
Folger?
Folger.
Yeah.
He did super well with Lions at Home Nations. But the vehicle list has a kind of similar thing where it can just run into certain armies, and you just can't deal with it.
Yeah. It definitely has that.
They both need babysitting in pairings. One does something different than the others.
Well, it hits a very unique level of stat check that it's very rare to see, because not only is it high toughness, it's also high armor save, high invuln save. It's hitting 3 of the major defensive breakpoints at the same time, while also being not hamstrung like Hammer of the Emperor is on a freaking wall, anywhere near as much. With a massive Dawn that needs to clear walls all the time. It needs to be within an inch of freaking walls to clear the walls consistently. Pumbaa, what would you say is the best attachment, if you disagree?
I think it's Lions, but I absolutely can see Nathan's points being 100% valid, and I don't think the difference is anything big. I think both of these attachments can be taken. I actually like Custodes so much that I would even say Shield Host is still completely playable. I would just put it in a tier below them.
Yep, I was going to throw Shield Host and even Talons in just a tad below Lions as options. Talons is the more janky, less damage orientated, as is Shield Host. Lions is max damage all the time, and the Solar Spearhead is just X Factor. Like, it just brings like a completely different look. My only issue with Lions is it's very much the same. It's very samey as Shield Host and Talons, and it's just kind of more of the same. And if you it doesn't change any reds to greens. Lions doesn't change anything that was a red to a green in my experience so far.
Would I can agree with. Yes, absolutely. I think in general, Custodes struggle a little bit with the fact that they, because of their specific units being only as good or as bad as they are, and not enough selection, I would say. Many of the builds, even in different attachments, looks a little bit samey. It's more of like you're bringing the Warden's blobs because it's been the case for the entire edition that they've been good, and they still are a backbone of the army. And it's kind of what I've seen is the decision between bringing tanks or the bikes now that they have been improved significantly.
Yeah. Totally agree. All right, moving on to the next one, Adeptus Mechanicus. We'll stick with you, Pumbaa. What do you reckon? Because I know Poland was absolute monsters with their AdMech at last couple of WTCs. What do you reckon is the best attachment moving forward?
I'm still leaning Skitari Hunter cohort. I think you play the junk. I think you just try to get through the entire game without losing your mind.
Play the junk.
I mean, it's the hard answer, I think, because I dislike the place where AdMech is right now, because they've become the army of just trash, or like throwing things in front of your opponent and trying to play on the board rather than the damage. They're just very annoying. From my experience, especially watching some of the Team US brought them to Pyro, for example, and I've seen their AdMech player Tyler Bortel play some of his games, and he was just, after 4 of those, he was just losing his mind because it's just
exhausted.
Exactly. You're just moving very unwieldy models around the table with throwing million dice with nothing much happening, but you still got to do it. So it's a little bit annoying, I think, and I don't love where this army is right now, but their playstyle has kind of become just Skaven, I could say.
That's a good comparison.
Just steal objectives, block your movement, auto-see your opponent, do tricksy stuff, and have enough dice to just mince through light infantry, for example.
It's the purest control army I think we have in the game, where their whole modus operandi is to just impede the opponent. They're just impeding. They're not destroying. They're not removing. They just corral and impede, and they do that quite well if you build into it. But it's not a very exciting place. Nathan, anything to add or anything you would alter?
Not really. Unfortunately, that is where AdMech are at the moment. Just fill the board, hope you go first.
I would also I need to mention the fact that I know that especially in Poland, there's been some talk or plays with AdMech that includes things like Red Zone and being more damagey, but it's been very niche still. I know it's been working very well, and at not the home nations, but the ETC, the Euro Trash Cup, I guess. Poland has also brought AdMech in that very more damagey version, and it's been working well for them. So definitely can be done still.
Excellent. All right, a faction close to my heart, Nathan. Astra Militarum, the Guard. This is hard because there's a lot of options. There's a lot of options.
For me, it's between Combined Arms and Mechanized.
Good man.
I kind of lean towards Mechanized. You're kind of in a earlier put forward, and there's a kind of a, do you want a guard list that scores really well or scares people more? So are you taking, like the Americans took 3 Rogal Dawns, so it's a put forward that's actually genuinely scary? Well, then you have to kind of go Mechanized. If you're taking 2 Rogal Dawns and multiple Lean Russes, you probably again need to go Mechanized. Or you take the Combined Arms, you take Kazakin, you maybe take 20-man blobs of Death Corps, or like Naz's list.
Yeah.
I think they both fill a fundamental role no matter which one you choose. It just depends how you then pair them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Mechanized, I think.
My argument, I think, is very similar to yours. I see Combined as much better at getting smaller wins. I see it as much better as a singles list. It's a very, very consistent scorer, very consistent performer. Doesn't push a differential. I feel like if paired correctly, Mechanized is a 15 more or more getter very easily, because you can always disrupt any score on the table with, moving Taurox and disembarking. Kazakin are a hell of a thing in a Mechanized, and you still take a couple of Dawns as well. It's got a lot of control aspects to it while still dealing damage on the way through. Pumba, what do you think?
I generally agree with both of you. I think I lean on the Combined, actually, a little bit because of just its consistency. I think guards can just play that defender role, for example, a little bit of a Brantler role. However, I would do this show a disservice not to mention the fact that I am from a country where Skark plays, and he's been on the fucking hammer of the
hammer.
Just putting people to the ground with just a mass amount of tanks and shooting, because that's what he does, and it's still been working, so definitely can be done.
I'm fully prepared to click on the list document for WTC and see 6 Dawn, 6 Russ under Skark's name.
Look. Me neither.
1 Hellhound.
You gotta strip the cover, obviously.
You gotta get rid of the cover. But yeah, I think Hammer deserves a shout out. My only issue with Hammer is your player has to be really good on the terrain usage. Because naturally we're talking about the top level, which usually means WTC. On GW boards, Hammer does a lot better. On UKTC, I think Hammer does a lot better. WTC, you really need to get a lot of reps on those tables. And you need to know which tables you can and can't pick for which matchup, which is a whole nother level to it.
Amen. I agree.
All right. And a army that I literally just played 2 weekends ago at our ATC or ANZTC, Australian and New Zealand Team Championships, which is essentially the closest thing we have to a local WTC. Grey Knights. Start with you, Pumba.
Difficult one, I think. I think it's still Warpaint. I, however, have seen Grey Knights falling out of favor for some reason. When looking through teams lists, looking at different team compositions from people, I think Grey Knights have fallen a little bit out of favor. And it's a little bit... I don't think they're bad by any means. And it's I'm a little bit curious of why that happened. I think their lineups or their matchups across the armies have fallen a little bit out of favor. And I think they now need to be generally more careful what they play against compared to what it has been in the past. I do still think there's play in both detachments. I do still prefer the sheer power that Warpaint presents. And I've seen it also played by Ruben Zhao, one of the prospects of Team USA at Pyra, and it's been doing incredibly well. So definitely not bad by any means. Maybe requires now a little bit more help in the pairings and an excellent pilot.
He was playing the all DKs all the time. Yeah, he was playing the 6 Dread Knights.
Basically, yes. I think it was 5 or 6. What is interesting is like I think the nerfs to is it the purgation squads that
Purgation squads,
lost? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he was using the indirect purgation squads, which
exactly. And
was a
that
big
has
thing
been
nowadays.
basically just don't exist anymore.
I tested those before the nerf extensively, and I actually didn't like them that much. When I realized that 3 of them could like not kill, because what I wanted them in there for was I was like, sick, this is going to be an awesome unit because it's going to kill 5 infiltrators for me, so all my uppy downy hits and lands, and my Drago lands, and my 6-inch crow drop lands. And I was like, they don't kill, all 3 units don't consistently kill a unit of infiltrators. Like, shit. This sucks. I wish this wasn't so. Did the dip in your mind happen around the time of DACA coming out? Because in singles, Grey Knights were like, no one wanted to play DACA with Grey Knights. They had no game.
I think that might have been correlated. I think they just are an army that is inherently less popular than other ones, especially when I think something that we need to mention and we cannot avoid is the fact that the meta is excellent and very open. So we also see the fact that if all factions are very playable, we see people gravitating to factions that are just inherently more popular. Some of and I think Grey Knights might have just been a little bit abandoned because of that.
Yeah, totally fair. Nathan, anything to add?
No, Pumba hit it on the head. It's unfortunately it's been index or a detachment that, to be honest, doesn't really make you change your list that much. It's still the same kind of units. Granted, they don't have a ton of units. Then they lost the indirect purgation squad, so they just kind of became. They didn't step on where other people had a lot more interesting options, so they just kind of fell out of favor. I think they're still really good though. I still like them a lot.
Easy. Well, I'll stick with you, mate, because we've got Imperial Knights next. I don't think there's a debate about which detachment's better, but what do you see as the best archetype for Knights? Because it's obviously Noble Lance, but do you like all the littles, or you like a couple of bigs? Do you think Canis Rex is an auto take still? Where you at?
Yeah, I kind of still feel like Canis is an auto take. The game has probably revolved around a little bit more into you want to take as many little knights as possible, and then maybe some agent allies or whatever. Because inherently big 400-point knights that don't have an in-run in combat don't trade well, especially in teams.
Yeah,
it's quite a volatile list. It kind of can win massive, can also lose massive. So they're in a weird spot usually.
Doing extremely well in singles right now, Imperial Knights, mostly with the 12 armagers, and then usually 1 or 2 immolators with sisters in them. What do you reckon, Pumba?
I think I like that variant better, actually. I think it was it's been quite popular in Germany because of one of the players. I think Fred either won or came close to winning a huge event in Germany with that heavy variant of just mass armigers.
Yep.
And I think we are slowly trying to find a place where the holes in this particular version of Warhammer that we are playing are just good enough as just cheap bodies. Because I think for most of the edition, it's been the case that everybody agreed that Chaos Knights are just better because their War Dogs are better. And suddenly I think we might be in a place where it doesn't really matter that they are better, as long as you have enough bodies that do something. And Noble Lance Detachment isn't bad by any means, especially with their buffs and stratagems for the Armigers, that they are just good enough to win games if you play them correctly.
Also, the addition of Imperial Agents means that Imperial Knights just have a super vast pool of allies to draw from, whereas Chaos Knights are relatively limited, especially seeing as they have to offset with a battle line for all the good stuff. So I do think that has given Imperial Knights at least an equality with Chaos Knights. All right, now we're going to move on to the Space Marines, and we're going to hit these pretty quick because it's going to be somewhat the same. First up, Vanilla Astartes, boys. We'll go with you first, Nathan. What do you reckon is the best? Well, what's the best sub-faction of Vanilla Astartes? Then what do you think is the best attachment?
Does Ultramarines Gladius fall under Vanilla?
It does, yeah.
Okay, then yeah, Ultramarine Gladius.
It's that one. It's that one.
Yeah.
That's why I said we're going to hit this quick. Is it rowboat and Calgar, or just rowboat, or just Calgar, or do you have to take both? Because it's just.
I think it's both. I know it's a lot of points, but him and Calgar in a company hero squad is still good value for points.
Yep.
And the Gladius has expensive strats. They have some of the best strats in the game. So when you can turn up with pseudo 25 CP a game, that's amazing. Although, shout out, John Lennon's using, obviously, is it Stormlance or whichever?
Stormlance with his Stormraven.
That's a really good list as well.
It's very good. He's made it very good. I have yet to see anybody else put up similar results. He's just doing his savant stuff with it that he always does. Pumbaa, what do you reckon?
I have nothing to add, honestly. I think I agree wholeheartedly, and that's pretty much it.
That's it. All right, Dark Angels is up next. So a little bit of debate over the Stormlance. I like to throw out, I love company heroes. I don't think it's the best. It's probably the most fun though. Stormlance is up there. Like, Gladius is an option as well. Pumbaa, what do you reckon about the Dark Angels?
I think they are better than people expect. I think if you bring by Deathwing Knights and do some funny stuff with them, they can still be incredibly hard to deal with many melee armies coming into the forefront, like EC or World Eaters or Death Guard becoming popular right now. Maybe Death Guard not necessarily. I'm not sure about that matchup yet. I think the Samuel package with Outriders is still very good. For example, if you want to and like people just forgot how fucking difficult it is. There's your one.
There's your one. There you go.
But yeah, I wholeheartedly remember how difficult it is to deal with like 15 Deathwing Knights rushing you and jumping out of Deep Strike at you. So still incredibly good, I think.
Any of your boys locally tested the Lion's Blade out much?
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, fair. I'm generally on the Stormlance front for myself, and it is 15 Deathwing Knights in teams, and you just try and pair into like damage 2 armies and laugh at them as they bounce off and feel impotent, and you just grind them into dust. All right, who'd we start with last one? I'll go with Nathan. Space Wolves.
I haven't seen an up-to-date Space Wolves list in teams. It used to be Stormlance. Because it was Thunderwolf Cav, not Stormlance, whichever one.
Champs of Russ.
Yeah, I think that's the last one I played in teams.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's a front runner. I think we probably should say events like WTC, they only let you take 1 Marine army, so correct. Usually they are lower down the pecking order.
Unless you have a specialist, unless you've literally got a specialist on it, like you wouldn't.
Did last year.
Yeah, correct. Pumbaa, what do you reckon about the Wolves?
I think they're super excellent. I think they are legit options. I think people still, after all these years, underestimate how hard it can be for a lot of armies to kill a Thunderwolf. Somewhat and somehow. And actually, at just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was that Alpine, one of the Polish teams with Kruger, so the team that played Space Wolves for Poland last WTC, and they came second with the Space Wolves list.
Nice.
Still Stormlance, still with a lot of Thunderwolves. So basically almost the same thing he's played at
unchanged.
WTC, and it's still working.
Yep. Depending on if and when the codex drops, like Wolf Jail might make exactly the same list might make 3 WTCs. Like it's kind of wild. The archetype just hasn't altered whatsoever. Staying with you, Pumbaa, Blood Angels. Now this one is interesting because there is a debate between Liberator and Inheritors. What do you reckon?
So I've been back and forth with this. And after seeing performance that some people are putting up, shout out to Oliver Weiss, captain of Team France, at this BFS that is happening right now. I've seen his games streamed, for example, and I am wholeheartedly believing that 18 Blade Guard Veterans Liberation Assault Group is right now the heat, and this is the variant that you should be playing. That is my opinion after just seeing results.
It's amazing. It's genuinely amazing. Nathan, what do you think?
I've unfortunately had to play Josh 1,000 times with 18 Bladeguard, and I never ever want to see them again.
It's really going to suck when they up the points on Bladeguard and it's just everyone playing the Blood Angels tax, because they're nothing in every other detachment, in every other faction.
Well, that's the argument for kind of why they went down. It's because you
correct.
never saw them, and then unfortunately it is, do you point for best versions or worst versions? So unfortunately, like you look at them in every other detachment and go, they're okay. But actually in Liberators, they are bonkers good.
Banging. I totally agree. And the fact is you get 3 units of them and you still get your full MSU package as well. You still get so many pieces in addition.
A quarter of your army.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild. So yeah, that's I 100% agree with you boys as well. Next up is a very maligned one, which is the Black Templars, which to me just feel like the worst of the Space Marine melee armies, melee-based armies. Even Dark Angels as a better melee army now. But Pumbaa, what do you reckon about the Templars?
I generally agree that they aren't the preferred option right now. What I would also mention is the fact that if you wanted to take them either in Iron Storm or a melee version, I can definitely see people, just very good players, playing that exact list that they've been playing for months or even years and still doing amazingly with them. I think they are underrepresented. I think they are underplayed. And because of that, they've been just kind of forgotten, and there's a huge shadow on their stats, for example. I don't think that actually represents the capabilities of the army. I think there might be better options for sure, but I wouldn't say that army is bad by any means.
Me either. Helbrecht and Grimaldus are still two of like the absolute superstar special characters in the game, and it's more that I think they're just been superseded. Like if you had to take a Space Marines faction in teams, like I said, Templars is like third on the list if you wanted to have a melee Space Marine faction. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I think England was playing around with, does the Horde Templar list still work? Turns out not really. But if you get it into the right matchups, get it into the right pairings, yes, it will still work very well. But yeah, it is a tough argument to go, is it better than Liberators, Blood Angels? No. Is it better than Ultramarines, Gladius? No. Is it better than 15 Deathwing Knights? No. Is it better than Space Wolves? No. So unless realistically you have somebody who's got hundreds of reps and knows everything about that, it wouldn't be my first choice or fifth choice.
Yeah.
If you were for choice, basically, in terms of Space Marines options, and they all kind of do something unique in a way, right? Like the Stormers can gel people, they are very good into shooting armies. Blood Angels just punch like a truck with the 18 Blade Guard with 4-up invulns, for example. Deathwing Knights are super good versus damage 2 stuff, very good into melee, stuff like that. And Black Templars kind of lack this a little bit of flair or speciality.
They hit just as hard as the others, like Sword Brethren. I will sit here, I will die on the hill. The Sword Brethren with Helbrecht hit as hard as anything in melee in the freaking game, and yet there's not an active like delivery mechanism for them. They don't deep strike. They're just hoofing it on the table, face up. Your opponent knows exactly what their range is and where they can go and what they can do. And you can't afford to take 3 of them like you can with the Blade Guard. And that's the issue. Like the issue is they're just as good, but everything they do is more awkward and costs more points. So that's my take. It is 100% still Righteous Crusaders is the only detachment worth considering. I did consider Firestorm for a moment, for a hot second. I thought Firestorm might be a contender for a decent detachment for Templars, and maybe it is, but I still think Righteous Crusaders wins it. Next up and last one in the Space Marines is the Deathwatch. And I mean, Black Spear, hands down, there's no comparison there. You're not going to take a freaking Gladius or anything for Deathwatch. What do you guys see as the core of a quality team's Deathwatch list?
So I love them in general, the whole faction. And I think they are incredibly good right now, still. I think there's a lot of variations. I think the gist of it is you either take 1 or 2 Indomitus kill teams, so the big blobs of just remove stuff from the board. You most likely are taking 1 or 2 squads of Deathwatch veterans. You either give them a Rhino or not, depending on your board state or what you want to do with them. You give them a Watchmaster or alternatively a Judiciar. You take some characters to give you free CPs, so the Watchmaster or the Gavis Captain, for example, and then you pivot into stuff like Trash, or you maybe take a Talon Strike kill team, which is also excellent. The biggest problem with building a Deathwatch list, or of course, in your Trash department, Trash, that's in quotes, because those are the Terminators, who for 190 are still ace. They are just incredibly cheap for their equipment, and they actually kind of take up the trash role in that army. The problem is you are playing with very few units. You deal incredible amounts of damage, and you are resistant to some types of damage. But if you come across something that is very good in terms of damage 3, high toughness, high AP, or strength rather, high APE, and your heal teams are not survivable to that type of stuff, you're going to lose that matchup 100% of the time. I
really feel like it's actually kind of similar to Custodes. It's like a Custodes and Grey Knights hybrid. You have the high toughness of Custodes and the same like wound counts, but not the armor save of Grey Knights. But you jump around and generally do more damage from range than Grey Knights. But every time you lose a squad, it's a quarter of your army dead. Anytime you misplay, it's devastating. So I feel like Deathwatch has like the highest skill ceiling of all the Astartes factions, and it's the hardest one to use perfectly. And you kind of need to play it perfectly at the level we're talking about. What do you think about it, Nathan?
Yeah, the ceiling is very high. Damage, it's one of the few ones that does combat very well and shooting very well. However, it's a little bit difficult to play on certain terrain types. You either play on too light and it gets shot too much because they are still infantry at the end of the day, or it's too heavy and your shooting doesn't do enough. And then you start getting into a game where I've put a Beast of Nurgle on an objective. I have to send an entire kill team to kill that.
Correct.
So if they can counter that, I've traded down enormously. So does it then become a Mexican standoff of our chaff is playing, but our bricks are not doing anything, which then just doesn't feel like it's maximizing points or pushing or whatever.
100%. Totally agree. I mean, I still think there is a place for literally windmill slamming Deathwatch veterans. Just windmill slam 3 units of 10 Deathwatch veterans with 3 Watchmasters, and then you still kind of maybe take a couple of 5-mans to just be like pseudo legionary units and go trade in the middle. Maybe they get judicious, and you just min max that. Just play advance and charge the army with like 1 bomb. And I don't know if that works, but that was just an idea I had a couple of weeks ago. All right, moving into the Chaos goodies. And this one's going to be pretty simple because of a recent addition. Chaos Space Marines, boys. Are we all in agreement? It's Renegade Raiders plus Noise Marines?
Nope. I actually think Creations is better for teams.
I think I agree.
Oh, I'm happy because I thought it was just going to be a no-brainer. Now we've got a discussion.
Renegade Raiders. Damage output from shooting and some of the combat is phenomenal. If your opponent runs at you, they don't always run at you, so it is very susceptible to draws, to the point where some armies, like, it doesn't OC bomb like it used to, because you've swapped rubrics for Noise Marines, who you're not going to lob a Noise Marine unit onto an objective. So, okay, well, am I just going to sit and wait? If they don't run at you and they have last turn, you end up getting draws, which is... the matrix is incredibly consistent. Like, I didn't, other than my own dice, I didn't feel like I had literally any really bad matchups. I kind of felt EC was maybe bad, but I got to pick a board choice and I was like, oh, this is fine. I literally just pick a Baron table and I can outshoot him all day and I outmech him. So that list becomes very much, it is very difficult to beat, but it doesn't necessarily push differential. Whereas Creations is kind of the opposite, where it'll have some volatile games where it goes, you brought a ton of damage 3 or you out-combat me. Damn, I'm going to really struggle here. But it has the potential and the scare factor to go, I'm 15+ing a third of their matrix.
Yep. That's
so
cool.
It depends how you built the rest of your team.
Yeah. So you're saying similar to what we're saying about combined arms, Renegade Raiders is just an extremely level performer, but cannot really move and shake, cannot really make a differential happen when it needs to. Whereas Creations of Bile, at least like it'll have a third of the matrix will be bad, but at least a third of the matrix will be good. Like you'll be able to really push and get a big differential. And you're saying, just for people at home, this is something you actually want. You 100% would rather what they're suggesting, what Nathan's suggesting. You don't really want any factions in the game at all that have nothing but yellows, because that's always leaving an opportunity to swing up or swing down, and that's just uncertainty. You'd much rather have some reds, some greens, some yellows, and have something for your pairings people to work with. Pumbaa, what do you reckon?
Generally agree. I think Raiders is a very interesting army in a sense that the skill of your opponent matters, I think, the most when playing against them. And people should be at a point, like the Raiders have been a thing for a long time, but I think because of the reasons Nathan described, they are more susceptible to people being very well versed in their tricks and how they are supposed to play the game. I think if you play Raiders into someone who, for example, forgot or hasn't had enough experience against this type of list and what it does, that still can people just rinse people off the board. But that requires your opponent to make a mistake. So it's kind of on you to either force that mistake, it may be very difficult to do, or make a decision if you want to bank on an opponent trying, like giving you the advantage, kind of, right?
Yep, I think that's well said.
Big ask.
All right, next up we have Thousand Suns. I don't think as much of a debate on the detachment or even the build. You can only take, you can take Magnus and
you take the Magnus, you take the rubrics with
the characters.
Still very hard, yes.
Yeah, but the things that make sense. Is there any X factors you think that should come into lists again, like mutaliths, like multi-mutaliths, or maybe, for God forbid, predators or something like that?
I think the mutas are still fine. I think they are still a piece that is somewhat difficult to remove, somewhat useful as a game piece to start your game off. I don't hate them at all, even at the current point costs. And I actually think, in general, Thousand Suns... actually, I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial, but I think Thousand Suns are Renegade Raiders, kind of. If your opponent isn't aware of the tricks they will pull, they can still rinse someone off the board.
Yep.
If your opponent is good against T-Suns and have played them a bunch, if they still remember when that army used to be very, very good and broken, and they still just do the same thing, hide behind walls, be very meticulous with their movement, count the movement of the rubrics, and be aware of the what the Thousand Suns army is actually able to do, because they will tell you they are able to do anything that is actually not true. If you are aware of what they are able to do, you will not lose against them almost ever, as they are too few and too fragile to just push you out of their own agenda. So you need to make a mistake to let them win games. And if you do make those mistakes, they will rinse you still.
I have 2 words that has resulted, 2 words and 1 CP that has resulted in every single one of my wins against Thousand Suns. Rapid ingress has been the key thing and the foil of every Thousand Suns game that I've ever played into them. Just like 1 premium rapid ingress that picks up 2 units of rubrics, and it's just like, well, GG, like it's over. And it just seems like they just don't have anything to stop, like just uppy downy shooting from angles, like on turn 3 and turn 4. But despite that, Nathan, do you think Thousand Suns have much to offer in a team setting still? Is there much gas in the tank?
Right now, no, not really. I think they're getting beaten out by quite a few. Like, they've been very somewhat predictable for a while now. They've only been taking nerf after nerf after nerf.
Yeah.
They are a little bit like World Eaters. They do particular things very, very well. So they're either top of the meta or mid-bottom of the meta.
Yep.
So, the only thing I would say is never take Forge Fiends, because you end up with a tattoo. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Brian. All right. Pumbaa, this is an interesting faction to discuss. Death Guard. We know they're getting a book, so it's kind of not really worth talking too much about what's going on here. But feel free to give a TLDR on what you think of the new Death Guard leaks so far, what they've told us, and how do you think this thing's shaping up? Because it looks, and it is, freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Death Guard just almost to the day has gotten the codex, and I think the book is great. As a Death Guard player, I'm over the moon. I enjoy them a lot. In terms of what's going to become the best build, it's very difficult for me to say right now. It's very testing in progress. One of the things I would like to mention is the fact that we might be at a place where the Plague Storm list is still very viable, where I've seen people kind of abandon that idea after seeing Plague Book Crawlers costs and how they've been.
Tell people at home what you mean by the Plague Storm, if they don't know.
So it's using either the plague swapping detachment or the vehicle detachment. Mm-hmm. You are trying to make a list of just pure tanking ability. Yeah. You're trying to overwhelm people with enough bodies, enough OC, enough toughness, taking things like Predators. The new drones are excellent in
Busted.
that. PBCs. The old drones, like the Flamer drones, are still ace. Mythic Blight Haulers have gotten a major improvement in that as well. So I do think there still might be, if you're looking for a skew to fill out your skew team composition, for example, I think that kind of build pairs incredibly well if you have to do kinds of knights, maybe Hammer of the Emperor Guard on you. Yeah. Then you want to fill up with even more just tanky bodies to overwhelm your opponent's team composition ability to deal with enough threats like that. I think this is where this type of list can shine. Otherwise, a lot of detachments can still work. I'm very curious to if the Death Shroud Terminators with LOCs are going to be actually so good that as people have been describing them, because after playing with them a little bit, they haven't been the best thing in the entire book.
What has been the best thing in the entire book?
I'm gonna throw out the thing that I've played with Death Guard for a long time and a long time ago. The 40 Plague Marines aren't bad, guys.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Because that's been a build that I've been loving with the previous detachment, with this detachment, and I'm slowly coming back after testing a lot of stuff, supplementing with it with stuff like the Talisman and the new Demon Prince on foot.
Yeah,
they're just spamming Plague Marines are with the virulence and with the buffing characters being so good again, with the Rhinos becoming what they are now, so Razorbacks. That build really is trying to is throwing out more damage than I ever expected it to.
Yeah,
where they have already not been bad for me previously.
And hey, if you never wanted to be scared of Emperor's Children again, that's what you play.
Man, if someone wants to just advance at you and charge you, then you're shit out of luck, man.
All right. Nathan, do you have much experience with the new Death Guard? And if so, what do you reckon is your detachment of choice for teams?
Just thinking how much I can and can't say. Officially, we're not really allowed to talk too much until it's actually out. However, I would agree with...
Yeah, the reviews are out, so...
Yeah, exactly. Like, everything's out, but it's not officially out. It's a weird space.
It's a weird window.
However, I would kind of agree with everything Pumba said. You can't advance in 9 inches is just dumb fun. In the index detachment, when you go, if I go first, I'll sticky all the objectives in the middle. I'll lob all my Poxwalkers at you so you can't get there. Then I'll put these guys on so you can't even advance around them to get onto the objective. It's like, cool, I just got 15, and now you have to try and assault Plague Marines on objectives. So I think any table where you can hide Plague Marines on objectives, the game is yours.
I agree. It's actually nuts.
Trying to hold objectives is a little bit more difficult now because the tougher vehicles, I say tougher, like Predators and stuff, are less useful to take now. I I've played quite a lot of games with the new Death Guard. I still like my Plague Storm army version
Nice.
2.0. Whether I've not come to a finalized list on it yet, but it's for teams. Yeah, there's kind of you could do a put 4D tank spam list. You could do the you can't charge me list. They have 3 very good archetypes. There's a vehicle spam list, a Plague Marine spam list with mech support, and then like the Terminators. Like the Grotless detachment is still really good.
It actually is. It actually is quite good now.
Yeah. So it is one of those you can play around with them quite a lot. It's actually a really good codex. Like you can play a lot of it.
It's one of the best codexes of the edition. I'm going to say it right now. So far, Death Guard looks like it, and I'll say it before I've played it or before I've seen any results. I think that's one of the best codexes of the edition. And if anybody's complaining about Death Guard, shut up. Shut up. They've never been the best army in the game. Not once ever since they became their own army have they been the best army in the game. Let's let them have their time, okay? Just leave them alone. They're allowed to be the best for a bit.
And I know I'm biased, but I do think they aren't broken. We are not talking Orks.
I don't think they're broken.
Detachment. We are not talking more Daka. We are not talking Index Elves. We are not talking anything like that, I think.
The complaints that I've heard, and these are all from people who haven't played it yet, because no one's played it yet, is that people are worried about playing something that has Necron level durability that also just absolutely guts you with damage as well. It's like Shatterstar plus Awakened Dynasty had a baby. That's what they're worried about, but this is all just conjecture. This is all just people dooming. But anyway, moving on, because we've got to keep moving. The other new codex, Pumba, starting with you, World Eaters. Where do you think they're at in teams right now? And what do you think their detachment of choice should be?
I think after reading the codex, because I've been so busy with Death Guard that are my baby child, I haven't looked at World Eaters super extensively, but I know from reading it, there's 2 things I think you can do in terms of putting World Eaters in the team composition. I think you are either going still Index detachment and trying to do a very similar thing that you previously were, and I think it still works. The question for me is, does it work as well as it used to? And was it working very well previously? Because if you weren't Anthony Vanilla, you weren't actually doing so hot with World Eaters in general, from what I've been seeing. And the other stuff is the teleporting bloodletters that everybody has been going all over the internet. I think I've seen talks about the in-turn bloodletters being quite good, and I think that is something that people are going to try. They're going to win events with it, and after it becomes popular, and if it does, people are going to learn to play against it, and it's going to be less good. However, Warhammer is kind of about winning single games and single events, right? If you find a list and you're going to ace an event with it and just abandon it, that's what you should be looking for.
The level of the game that we're talking about, I think, precludes that stratagem and that detachment. I think people who are playing WTC are good enough to not get destroyed by the Incarn, and this is essentially a worse Incarn that you pay a CP for. From previous editions, Yinkan right now she's okay. She's not amazing, but we've played against Busto Yinkan, and I've managed to get good into that. This is a similar skill set required to overcome, and it's essentially a detachment that has 1 CP, as far as I can tell. As it has 1 stratagem, as far as I can tell. Everything else is okay, but that's really a really good CP. Nathan, what do you think about World Eaters?
Yeah, I think they are going to have to be in a weird space until 1 or 2 super competitive lists comes out. We'll just have to see which ones actually come out. I actually am not sure which list will come out on top, and if any of them make a team. I generally don't know where World Eaters, but that's always kind of been World Eaters, where they might just be a faction specialist army.
Yeah. I see the Gore track. I really like the Gore track. I think it's a lot of fun. I do see that as a singles army. I don't think that's an army. I don't think that's a list that goes very well in teams. I'm much more on the Berserker Warband, or even the Possessed one, even the 8-bound one, as being possibly better in teams, because at least the 8-bound one can just sit askew with a high toughness, high wound count. and just position up and just be like, you can't really come near me or I'll surge you, and I can come get you if you try to come too far out of your DZ. If I go first, I'll just post up. Pretty similar to what we're doing now, but with some extra tricks and bits and pieces. Which is the one that gives deep strike? Which is the detachment? So I've got my mate who said you can give you can attach a one of the new character to a unit of 6 exalted 8 bound and give it deep strike with fights first. And I was like,
I think they
okay.
naturally have deep strike, don't they?
They do have natural ability. They do. That's right. So it's a fights first ability. He's like, that's a thing. That's a thing you can put your money on, because that thing, rapid ingressing or rapid ingressing to heroic, or just rapid ingressing to go into your opponent. That's a X factor that they kind of didn't have before. Having fights first in Emperor's Children could just be a new level for them to pull. But I agree with you. It's still very early days on them. Not early days on this one, Pumbaa. Emperor's Children. What is the detachment you believe does best in teams?
Oh god, that's such a difficult question. Because it's coteries or it's still Carnival. And I think if you are a normal person trying to play normal Warhammer, you are trying to make coteries work, and I think that's your default. And if you are completely balls to the wall, one of the best players in the world, I think you're trying to go with Carnival. I think what I've heard and what I've seen is that the Carnival has the bigger push potential.
And you said that Carnival is Carnival the one where you get the Slash Demons?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I think it has the higher push potential. I think it's way more difficult to play and abuse, but I think it's also less susceptible to your opponent refusing to play with you.
Yes.
Compared to coteries. So it might be more easier to push, but also more difficult to just play Warhammer with it, is what I'm saying. I do think Imperial Children in general are excellent, and they are a very difficult army. An army that is still niche enough that people don't truly know what they are getting into when they play against it. And I think that's still that army's huge upside when taking it into a team comp.
I have 2 words for anybody who's playing since 8th edition who hasn't played against Emperor Children and wants to know what they do. Kraken Genestealers is what comes to mind.
Yeah, that's kind of accurate, right? It's 40 inches.
Yep. Send it in. It's not a crazy quantity or quality of attack, but it's quantity for days, rerolls in the right places, and they can get you wherever you are. Doesn't matter where you are, they can get you. Kraken Steelers is what I think of. Nathan, any dispute on the detachment front, or are you in tune with Pumbaa?
No, it's pretty much between those two. I think most people will lean towards the Courtiers detachment.
I'm surprised neither of you mentioned Peerless, because they have just 3 incredible enhancements with the fights first, the fights twice, and is it the Distortion Prince for the 4 damage prince? I'm surprised neither of you mentioned it, but I do. The only reason I think people doing that is because it's just coterie for the better players who can guarantee kills every turn to push a coterie score. I understand 100%. But for people just picking it up, if you wanted just the easy one, the one that just feels like you're playing Gladius, this is a perfectly fine place to start. But you might find yourself on coterie sooner or later. So I do agree with you. All right, Demons. So is there 2 contenders here? Is it Plague Legion? Is it Shadow Legion? Is it something else altogether, Pumbaa? What do you reckon?
I think there's more than 2, honestly. I like Demons a lot. I think the default right now has become the Shadow Legion. I think it is excellent. It is absolutely bonkers good. And I love it. Plague Legion is just dumb fun. I've been playing that detachment, and it just, unless you are playing against Gladius with Gilliman, which I've done, not a very fun experience because of the rerolls to Battle Shocks, but that basically nullifies your whole army. But unless you're playing that, incredibly fun, just throwing bullshit at your opponent, trying to killing something is a difficult task to achieve, but you're still winning on primary somehow. Very fun to do, and very good, actually. And I don't dislike, and I'm 100% sure that Sweden is somewhere there, just playing the same old WTC index list that they've been playing for 2 years now. That
the 4 bigs. incursion
Yes,
list.
with the Blood Clashers, all the gimmicks, just they're entirely the same thing. And they brought that exact same list to Pyre a couple of months ago, and they've still demolished it. And
Wow.
I'm sure it still works just as well.
Nice. Nathan, what do you reckon? Any disputes or anything different you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's Shadow, Nurgle, or Incursion. I think probably Incursion and Shadow will be more the front runners. The Nurgle list it's a very good blunting list. I think on the right tables, it's very, very, very good, and it's difficult to kill. But yeah, it's the only problem with Shadows is I'm not super convinced about Shadows when they can't take Chaos Space Marines. So if you take Chaos Space Marines in your team, for those who don't know, you can't then take the allies. Unlike when we talked about earlier where Emperor's Children can be taken in Raiders, they don't have the Emperor's Children keyword. So that's a slight weird way of doing it. But so I would normally probably aim towards Incursion more than Shadow.
Interesting. So I will like to say I played against Shadow on the weekend, and the Bloodthirster can go straight to hell. Straight up. Yep, straight to hell. That Bloodthirster is dumb.
It's my favorite model in the game.
Oh, no good. I was playing Imperial Knights, and the only thing I could say to myself was like, don't lose more than 3 Knights this game to the Thirster. If you just don't lose more than 3, all right? If you lose 4, you suck. If you lose 2, you're awesome. You're probably going to lose 3 though, and that was all I could do. I lost 3. But the thing is, the rest of the Shadows army just feels very awkward still. Like outside the Thirster, it feels very anemic. And yeah, I'm totally down with if you've got a Demon Specialist, get him on that Plague Legion, get him on that Incursion, and do some spicy stuff. All right, Chaos Knights is up next. We don't really need to talk about Chaos Knights as far as a detachment and a archetype go, but more to the point, I'll start with you, Nathan. How do you think they're going in teams, and do you still think they're worth taking?
CK are actually in a very weirdly good place right now.
I agree.
They can help you fulfill your a thing we kind of touched on earlier was when you're building your team, you can push down certain avenues. You can have teams where they have 4 or 5, say it's an 8-man team, you can take 4 or 5 aggressive assault armies. You can take 4 or 5 mech heavy lists. So cool, 1 or 2 of them might have tougher games, but then the other 2 just roll over their opponent.
Yeah.
Or you can go down horde armies, etc., etc. CK are in a place now where they're quite good into a lot of the heavy combat armies we see these days. They score super well. What their kind of key thing, I guess you could say, is because they have such high OC, move through walls and are fast, they're very good at points denial, which for when you're racking up differential scores is very, very important. Yeah. And they just have that chance where you can have a game where it's like, it's maybe going to be like 11 to 9 points, and then it just starts going your way and you start getting 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
They can weirdly push super well. But the verse of that is they're not a 9 to 11 army. They are a 5 to 15 army where you have turns where you lose.
Yeah.
You have games where I think I'll lose 2, and they go, cool story, bro, I'll kill 6. And you're like, cool.
GG.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Also, I mean, everyone was hyping up Chaos Knights extensively when Eldar came out because they were like, well, let's just build Chaos Knights because Aeldari can't play it. Has that turned out to be the case, Pumba?
I think so.
Yeah.
In general. I love Chaos Knights. I think they are just excellent. And I have more or less nothing to add to what Nathan has been talking about.
Beautiful. Which one of you guys feels like they're more confident to talk about Necrons right now?
I can do it.
Go for it, mate. What's the detachment of choice, and what are they offering teams?
So Necrons for teams is a little bit board choice. If you are playing GW terrain, then Star Shatter, as you can see by, I think, Fennel and Siegler are both on. They were 4-0 going into this morning. They're probably 5-0 now. I think on WTC terrain, they struggle a little bit more. So you probably fall down the more Awakened Dynasty route. They, unfortunately, are just a blunting list where they don't necessarily, like, push differential very much. They're difficult to stop scoring, but they also don't really stop your opponent from scoring. And yeah, that's kind of where they are.
Yeah. More than anything, I will say Awakened Dynasty, if paired well, is unbeatable, but that doesn't mean they win, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, they can't, if you pair them well, they actually can't, like, lose the game. Maybe they get a 9, right? Maybe they get an 8 in a really bad matchup. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous that they have, like, 1 or 2 reds, and then everything else is, like, orange, and it's never going to change. They're probably the most consistent 10-getter in the game, in my opinion, or at least for Awakened Dynasty. Pumba, what do you reckon?
I think so. I think the Star Shudder is the way forward, and the default. Awaken, I'm a little bit scared of like, if you were to bring the Awaken, and the thing that you've been talking about, I feel like Awaken right now might be a list, depending on what kind of meta you fall into. You either come across stuff that just cannot deal with the blobs and the resurrecting shares, stuff like that, and you're cruising, and you are in a position that you described. I would be scared of the fact that you come up against a team composition where you have those 2 reds, as you described, and there's like no upside. There isn't an army that isn't like, maybe one of the armies isn't able to deal with you, and then you're becoming more than of a like liability instead of a benefit to your team. And I think that can happen with that specific list right now.
Well, I got 14-6 by Awakened Dynasty with my Grey Knights, because he went first, got on every objective, and I was never going to get him off any of them. So they can still do that too. Next one's going to be an interesting one. Orks. So Mordaka has been nerfed. We know Tactical got nerfed as well. So it's just like, they get a detachment, they nerf the detachment. They get a detachment, they nerf the detachment. So where do you think they are at, Nathan, Orks-wise?
So now that Daka's gone from event ending to mid-tier, I think Orks probably fall into Warhorde or back to Tactical.
Yep.
And I think it's, do you want a pressurized combat list, which Warhorde, there's a real argument that they can kind of out-combat most armies in the game.
Yep.
If built in such a way. Or you go down Tactical, where you can play against other tank lists, you can play against the Horde Infantry Elite lists with loads of flat 3 damage. So, yeah, I kind of lean more towards Tactical, because I think a lot of teams are actually these days, you'll see things like people will go, here's 2 Rogel Dawns on a light table. Oh, well, actually, we don't have 2 armies that can prey on that, so you have to go, here's Orks and here's something else.
Yeah. I would also like to say it's actually very funny that Zodrog and the 22 Gretchen has been a play the whole time, and Daka went away this weekend last, and I still see Zodrog in like so many lists. I think I saw like 11 lists from team events this weekend where Zodrog's back in. I'm like, it's like everyone just like didn't know it was there until it was broken, and now it's not broken. Everyone's just like, this is just amazing. This is the best unit ever. And they're not wrong. That unit is insane. The only thing I would add is that I've seen some arguments in teams for Green Tide still. I don't know how real that is, but I can see it. I can see it with, if you're hitting a Horde skew, it's one of those Horde armies that can really push that skew as well. Pumba, what do you reckon about Orks in general?
I think the default, as Nathan described, has been Tactical. I think Warhorde is your choice. I actually love Warhorde, I'm going to be honest, as a detachment in general. But I think it is the best when you need to support some other army. I think, shout out, I think they are a great pairing to EC in a team composition, for example.
Yeah.
I think they are very similar in the roles and the matchups that they want to get, so they are able to pin together something that you want to get rid of and pry upon. So I think that's huge value. In terms of Green Tide, I think there's a build there, and I think legitimately we are 3 months from WTC now, but the meta is so open that I believe that finding stuff like maybe like keep coming back to the last year's WTC where France won, and they just took some balls to the walls list that everybody would have been like, surely that doesn't work. But they've tried and they've succeeded. And to me, Green Tide looks like something along those lines, where you just, if you hit them, it's a risk. If you take it, you must deal with the consequences. But if you are correct in your assumption that this works and has enough good builds, enough good matchups compared to bad ones, you might be able to just win tournaments off top of that, off of that decision.
Yeah, agree. All right, this one's going to be a little bit sad. Tau. Nathan, do you want to kick us off? What's their best attachment, do you think, for teams?
Best attachment for teams is Kroot. Other than that, probably don't really look at them. They're so mono. They can play the last 3 turns pretty good, like triple tide kind of list. But then you have to put it forward, you have to pick a table, and then it still has bad games in its matrix, unfortunately.
Explain explain the Kroot archetype to me. Is that just massed Kroot plus Riptides and Skyrays? Or Hammerheads?
So this might just be because I played it recently at a tournament. I'm like, why does nobody play this? This is ridiculous. He had like 22 units and 250 wounds. And I was like, what is going on? Now, they're a little bit terrain reliant because WTC... So he had the 9 Krootoks and 18 Rampages.
Whew.
And I was just like, that they are 30 wounds a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an 18-inch lone op, and they all scout 7. So it's like, well, there's not a lot I can do about that. It is quite a fragile list, but it still all has a 5+ invuln against shooting.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of wounds, and it's a lot of units, and they have a lot of OC, and it all scouts, infiltrates, and does everything else. So, like, in some games that either puts you in jail or, like, Rampages hit hard in combat. That they have the mortal wounds like Blood Crushers, and don't underestimate how much damage that list does when it starts. Like, if you are below starting strength, especially vehicles or monsters or even small units, just if that Kroot sniper hits you and gets 4 rerolls to hit shooting and combat, big things fall over real quick. Just
fascinating.
A lot of shooting.
Very interesting to hear, dude, because I'm actually excited to hear that, because I thought we were going to be really like, we have nothing to say on Tau. But Pumbaa, what do you reckon? What do you reckon is their best attachment, and what's their role, if they've got one?
It's hard to define their role, necessarily. I think this is the biggest Tau problem, and this is the reason why a lot of people have been down on them. It's hard to pick Tau into the team composition and say, they are our gun line, and they are the best option for our gun line. It's hard for them to say they are the blunter, and they are the best blunter in the game. So it's very difficult for them to fall into a team composition unless you're like, we are picking Tau because we have a Tau player, which is, I'm going to just be honest, I think this is like excellent choice for a specialist, and in general, I think we are in a meta where specialism is premium.
Yeah, me too.
I love the fact that Nathan mentioned the Kroot detachment, because I do believe it's the best one. And the lamp rampages are just not an honest unit. I legitimately think that if that unit, with all of its glory, would have been in any other detachment, that would be instantly nerfed and just completely deleted from the game, because they are so goddamn good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shout out Orks Cadre as a second best detachment, actually, instead of Rakka. I think they are, if you are just playing Tau good stuff, with the Rampagers, but maybe the Tyranids as well. Maybe you want to run the Hammerheads, stealth suits, just commanders, just Tau good stuff list. I think right now might be the Orks Cadre.
Nice, I like that chat. I think that's good. I'm going to go on a limb and say something very sad about Tau. I think they're legitimately the second worst pick in teams right now, behind Imperial Agents. I think they're actually in the doldrums, and it makes me sad because what you said is perfectly correct. Like, are they the gun line? No, there's like 4 better gun lines. Votann's a better gun line. Star Shatter's a better gun line. Any guard detachment is a better gun line. Any Gladius is a better gun line. Like, you take double, triple Vindy, double, triple Ballistus, you're a better gun line. It's kind of really sad for Tau at the moment. I feel for him.
And you have to spend a weekend with a Tau player, so there's always that.
All right. Next up is the Votann. Now, who's closest to Germany? That's you, Pumba.
Geographically, yes, for sure.
What the hell is going on there with Votann? How are they doing this? How are they getting away with this?
I think we are extracting more and more information about the German Votann situation, and I think we are slowly distilling the fact that it's just Tim Schneider being the best player.
It's just him demolishing
because
people.
I think they went to ETC as well, and they actually didn't bring Votann because Tim wasn't there, which is just incredible.
Okay, that makes sense.
Votann are still excellent. They either are an army that is they are a great guideline that is very drawish in how they approach the game, and they have a lot of tools to just hold the line and not get anybody high scores on them. Or if you are apparently just the best Votann player on the planet, you are able to still abuse their scouts mechanics and the Berserker stat line to send people just flying off the board in an instance.
Yeah.
I think that requires incredible amount of talent and just practice, because nobody besides him, I think, is able to replicate what he's been doing. But in general, Votann, even without his Super Saiyan abilities, still excellent as maybe more of a defender role if you're a normal person.
Yeah. I see them as quite similar to how Death Guard's been playing in teams recently, with a little bit more push potential. Like, Death Guard can't quite push the differential, but can't be pushed in as much. Votann can be pushed in a little bit easier, but can also, push for bigger scores, I believe. The bikes, because is Tim running 663 or is it 666 bikes?
I think it's 663. Maybe it differs from list to list. Maybe he changed.
He had 6 and 3 at Pyre.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
It's the bikes. I just think the bike's been the secret sauce at the moment. The bikes are just incredibly good into everything. I've got 2 judgment tokens. This bike is everything I need into every target. It's amazing. But I think Votann's an extremely good place. All right, moving down to the Tyranids, and one that I'm starting to become a little bit down on personally. I've been quite high on Nids as a kind of AdMech army that still can do a lot of damage into certain profiles if paired appropriately, and that's only falling off over time, unfortunately. Nathan, where do you think you're the Nids boy? Give us your take on them in teams, and what do you think the best attachment is?
Nids are in a weird place. When everybody was running light table mech armies, they were amazing because you can Tyrannifex your way out of all of your problems. Turns out Tyrannifexes don't have anything to shoot these days, realistically, unless you really struggle to get them to pairings. So they kind of fall into they are a very good mid-range army, which is why probably the number 1 detachment now is just Invasion Fleet.
Yeah.
So Belgium's been running one that's very good, pretty standard. It's got 1 Norn just to sit on an objective, which is just points every game. He's running the 3 units of 20 Gaunts with the -1 to hit and a Turvagon, so it's just regenning. If you play certain games where you just, a bit like Samuel Pope's Worlds list, where I think he had 80, but it's kind of one of those, it's high OC, 8, you can feel no pain those big bricks, the -1 to hit. You usually don't have enough to kill a whole 20-man brick in 1 activation, so then it becomes a case of they regen some models, which usually gets them back onto the objective because the terrain is either adjacent to the objective or actually behind it. So it's a ton of OC. So that's probably where that kind of list is. Crusher still works a little bit for singles. Don't think it has as much place in teams.
Agreed.
Then again, you also have Vanguard, which is very good, very techy, but if you're looking at actual combat armies, it kind of falls down like 4th or 5th on the list.
Yeah.
So, and it's fragile when you do get to shoot it. So it is a little bit of a mids are just kind of struggling to make the team these days.
Yeah, I agree. Pumba, anything to add?
Yeah, I echo your stance where I've been very happy with where Nids have been for the majority of the edition and how they've been performing very stable, useful roles for team compositions. And I think that is no longer the case. Myself, I've been very impressed with still, especially some spokes list from Pyra, where they've devised a list that is incredibly focused on just doing one thing very well. And I think this is where Vanguard kind of shines. If you are trying to get rid of kind of armies that are very tricksy or like certain profiles that they are good into, I think they need to be very specialized right now instead of very all-comers.
I agree.
That they've used to be throughout the edition.
And that's an old adage, what you're just talking about there. If you've got an army that doesn't have a defined anything, the best thing you can do is skew it hard into something. If your all-comers just doesn't, like a Gladius is an all-comers that kind of does a bit of everything well. Tyranids kind of can't take an all-comers and do anything well. So you have to hit a skew somewhere that'll push at least something in your direction. I'm still waiting for somebody to just take like massed gargoyles and lone ops, and that's it, and just go first. And just like that's all we got, boys. Just lone ops and jail, and that's all we're gonna do.
I have actually played that list a couple of times in testing.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm going to take 60 gargoyles. I'm going to take loads of lone ops. Still got 3 exocrine for shooting. I think I had 26 units or something.
Nice.
And then it just, unfortunately, it falls into a little bit of the AdMech thing of I didn't go first and I don't have enough damage.
That's it. Yeah. I didn't go first, and they knew enough not to be scared, so they sent at me.
A little bit.
All right, this next one's going to be an interesting chat. We have GSC. And who wants to start us off? What they think their best attachment is and archetype?
I'm gonna be honest. I think it's Host, and I think Host is great. And I think people just, for whatever reason, keep ignoring the fact that Host is great, and I cannot understand why.
I think it's more the fact that GSC players have either no stomach left for 120 neophytes, and then still like 6 units of 5 Akos, or I think that's it. I think they're just like, nah, we're over it. We're not going back. That's all we've played the entire time the faction's been in existence. And but that's the list you're describing, right? It's the 120 Akos,
100%.
Yeah, and it's just like bodies. It's essentially functioning very similar to Deathwatch, where it's like raining men with guns.
It's a little bit, I think it's functioning a little bit like Deathwatch, maybe a little bit like Adeptus to some extent, because it's a lot of bodies and junk, but shoots, I think, way better. I can see that. I can see people just not being excited to bring it anymore. And that's being the reason why they are not the most popular. I think they are excellent, though. Generally, in terms of matchups, I think they present you with something that other armies aren't able to. I think because of what we've described and this mix of fast gun or teleporting gun, just deep striking, shooting you off the board, and then board controlling and OC controlling the shit out of you, it is a mixture between like Guard playstyle, Deathwatch playstyle, AdMech playstyle, but they do something in Matrix. I think they do something very unique in that terms, and this is why I like them so much.
But once again, they're a faction that has an extremely high ceiling for skill expression and also a very... Sorry, I'm just saying you need a faction expert. It's essentially what I'm saying. I'm saying you need someone good. You can't just... Unfortunately, they're not a faction you can just like go over to old Bobby and be like, yo, you're the GSC player now, and expect them to perform. Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, Host for me is the front runner. I played Innis at Home Nations recently, and it was like, yeah, that list is really, really solid. I would also give a shout out to Final Day. I think that's very good, especially more now that realistically you might not see Tyranids at a team.
Yeah.
So, because that was kind of always the you take Final Day, but we have a Tyranid player, so we don't look at them. But yeah, for me, it's kind of host. Like the combat, I can't remember the name of it. The combat one is still good.
Biosanctic.
But I think it's just been muscled out with there's too many good combat armies now.
Yeah. Well, Eric's still doing incredibly well with Outlander Claw, doing amazing things with that. Just taking essentially it's Mechasalt. It's Mechasalt GSC, and he's doing incredible things with that down under. All right, 2 more factions. Drukhari. Is there any discussion, or is it Sky Splinter is the best attachment?
I believe it's Sky Splinter, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something I think a little bit controversial. I dislike that army super hard right now.
Dislike it?
Yes, I think they don't have a place. When we've been talking Tau as your like second worst army to take into the team composition, I say no reason to take Drukhari whatsoever.
There you go.
I actually would much rather have Tau in my team composition than Drukhari right now. That's my take. I think it is so incredibly hard to find good matchups for that army and for them to not fall into a place where they are a liability. That, of course, changes if you have, again, and we'll keep saying that, if you have a specialist in that army, then sure, go for it. But just there is absolutely no reason, and I see no reason to take them into a team composition to fulfill a specific role. And even if you find them a specific role, you might find it into a trap where you are good only into like 2 of your 8 matchups, for example. And that's a consistency where you will struggle into most armies in the game right now.
Fair. Nathan, anything to add on Drukhari?
Not particularly. They are unfortunately in a weird place of a lot of other armies do what they do much, much better. Yes, you can have faction specialists, but you are going to give yourself a nightmare in pairings trying to babysit them, which usually has big knock-on effects for the rest of your team.
There you go.
So they just don't feel like they're worth it.
I don't think they're as bad as you're saying, but I get it. I like, if I was making an 8-person team, I would see no reason to put Drukhari on the list. I just don't think they're doing enough that's unique or spicy. They do some great tricks like getting back in raiders and things like that, and they are quite punchy. It just kind of pisses me off they don't even have the best incubi anymore. Like the best incubi is in Ynnari.
That's just sad, right?
That annoys me to no end. Frustrating as hell. Anyway, going on to Aeldari, which is our last faction. Is it just Ynnari, or is there any debate out there for what is the best attachment in teams?
I like Harlequins.
I love Harlequins.
Good man. I knew I put you on the show for a reason. That detachment is significantly underexplored.
It's also amazing on WTC terrain because you can literally go. There's in some of the certain terrain maps where you have 6 9-inch by 9 by 5 inches. You can effectively go because they ignore vertical distance. You can go from the top level of one 9-inch ruin to the other top level of a 9-inch ruin.
Yep.
Which makes them borderline unassaultable to the point where they come down, charge something, reactive move back up to the top of a ruin again, and you're like, oh, that's really, really, really annoying.
That is sick. That is absolutely sick. Pumbaa, do you agree Harlequins is better than Ynnari, or is this just us talking about something that could be as good as Ynnari?
Oh, no, I think Ynnari is possibly better.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's so hard to say they are better than Ynnari. I think they are just underexplored, and I think that makes them a little bit better because people will be used to playing against Ynnari by some point, even though they are a complete nightmare to play against. Yes, it is Ynnari by default. I think Harlequins are excellent. I even am not a hater of Seer Council. I think that army is is legitimately okay. And I know the Germans have still been going strong with Windrider host, depending on what you want. So I do think the default is Inari, and they are just so goddamn good. It's very hard to just explore other detachments fully and just learn how good that codex is elsewhere. But it definitely will. If Inari gets a little bit bumped, which I think it should, I think elder players will just explore their codex more intensely, and I think Harlequins will be the next one to be the default option. That's my opinion.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm of the opinion there's only one bad detachment in that 8 detachment book. And as soon as Inari gets nerfed, Eldar players are just going to be like kids in a candy store. Like, oh my god, everything is actually pretty good still. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this extensive faction by faction teams discussion. I want to thank you both for coming on. Please feel free to plug your wares. I'll make Nathan do it this time, seeing as Puma did it at the start.
Yeah, so stick out, like, generally come watch all StatCheck's content. It's all fantastic. When we do an episode, which we are going to try and do more of, I think, now that more team season is popping about, come watch Enter the Matrix, where me, Typhus, and Pumba do the most scuffed and intellectual show on teams imaginable.
It's fantastic. It's a great time. And that is going to end us for this part 1, guys. Come over, join us over on part 2. We're going to answer Patreon questions, talk about the upcoming WTC, what nations are putting their right foot forward for, going for a win. It's France, but we'll talk about why. And we'll also be putting together our 3 heads and talking about what we would take if WTC was happening tomorrow. As an 8-pack. So come and join us over there. We'll be telling you why and what those lists would be. And hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Also, this week, I'll be putting out 2 shorts episodes. One going over my ANZTC run with Grey Knights for Team Victoria, and the other one at my GT attendance this weekend at a 90-player local event where I played my first game with Imperial Knights. So first GT with Imperial Knights. So come and check those over for the full recaps of those 2. And yes, that's AOWdu over on Patreon. Hope to see you there. Boys, thank you so very, very much for coming on. Always an absolute joy. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. And take care, boys. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you for having us, and see you at the other side as well.
Thank you very much.